Welcome to the Inspired by Her Story podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Casso, travel and brand photographer and the founder of Caitlin Casso Creations, where I share other women's stories through my photographs and now this podcast. Inspired by Her Story is a podcast dedicated to inspiring, motivating, encouraging, and empowering women to get out of their comfort zones and follow their dreams. Whether it's owning their own business, experiencing something new, or making a major life change, I want to encourage other women to follow their dreams and live their lives to the fullest. Throughout this podcast, I will be sharing my own stories and those of inspirational women with hopes to let souls connect and adventures to unwind. Follow along as I take you with me during my travels, experiences, and encounters with these amazing women. On today's episode of Inspired by Her Story is a segment I call Casey Chats, where I talk about my own personal experiences or thoughts on getting out of my comfort zone. Whether it's stories from my travels, building my own business, or just life experiences, I hope my stories can truly inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and live your life to the fullest. Welcome to a segment of my podcast that I call Casey Chats, where I talk to you either about some inspirational thought that I came across or maybe my own personal experiences. Today, I wanted to talk to you about getting out of your comfort zone. Now, as many of you know by now, that is what I am pretty much basing my company around. And it's because it's something that I've experienced personally, and I feel like I wasn't really living my life to the fullest until I got out of my comfort zone. And so my goal for my company is to inspire, motivate, encourage, and empower women to get out of their comfort zones, to follow their dreams, and do things that they've always wanted to do. I really feel like I wasn't living my life to the fullest until I got out of my comfort zone. And so since I experienced that, I hope that I could bring my stories to everyone and help encourage them to do the same. Now, growing up, I was always a scaredy cat. I was kind of wrapped in this bubble of, never really wanting to get hurt. I didn't like trying new things. I was never into sports or anything like that. I was always wrapped in this bubble. Even growing up, as I got older and older, I still felt like I was in that bubble. And I remember having times where a situation would come to me that I could take part in, but maybe it sounded a little scary or intimidating, and I would say no to it. But then I would always feel so disappointed in myself after that I didn't give it a shot. If it was something where I heard people were having fun and enjoying themselves, but I was too scared to do it, then I instantly would regret it, and I hated that feeling. There was one thing, though, that I always knew I loved to do and wasn't intimidated by, and that was traveling. I would try to travel as much as possible, as I do now. Now it's even more, of course, but I would try to at least have at least one vacation a year to somewhere new, seeing something new, trying something different. Luckily, my friends love to travel as well, so we all travel together every year. And so we were planning our next vacation, and it sounded epic. We wanted to start off in Las Vegas and then head over to Utah to go to Zion National Park, and then from there go to San Diego and California. I was like, this all sounds great, except what are we doing in Utah? Of course, what we're going to do there is go hiking. Now, I was someone who never really liked being in nature, being outside, being adventurous. It was not a part of me. Again, I was in this bubble. But I couldn't say no to this opportunity because the traveling part just sounded amazing. It sounded so cool. So of course I said yes, and I remember I was so nervous the night before going. I remember I couldn't even sleep at night because I was like, I'm so nervous about this whole Zion thing. Like, how am I supposed to go hiking? Because it wasn't just like an easy hike either. We were doing some epic hikes. So, we did the Vegas part. Everything went great. So happy. Drove over to Zion. Of course, I wasn't going to sit out for all these hikes the whole time we were there. And it was so beautiful. These red rocks everywhere, just so different than the landscape that we have in the Northeast. One of the hikes that we were doing was called the Narrows. And so for the Narrows, you hike through the Virgin River, and you're actually in this canyon where there's like 1,000-foot walls surrounding you. Believe like it goes as wide as like maybe 20 to 30 feet at times when you're hiking through the river. Since we were hiking through the river, we had to rent special gear. We had to get like neoprene socks and water shoes and walking sticks. And I remember getting those and I was like, oh my God, this is legit. I'm actually doing this. I'm actually going through this hike. I can't believe it. Even like hiking through this, you have to be careful because you have the danger of flash flooding. So you need to make sure you keep your eye on the weather before you even go, because you do not want to get caught in that. We started walking through, and I remember just looking around my surroundings and I was like, this is so beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful. I can't believe I'm doing this right now. And with each step, I started realizing, okay, I got this. I can do this hike. This is no problem. And it was pretty easy peasy, I guess you'd say, for as easy as it can get walking through water. It would like go up to our waist at times. And then we had this spot where you could either choose to like go straight or take a right, something like that. And if you chose to take that right, it completely changes. You're no longer just walking straight through the river. You now have these big boulders that you have to climb across. Luckily we had 5 guys with us. It was like 5 guys and 3 girls in our walking sticks, because they were able to kind of help like pull each other up over these boulders, because they were pretty intense. And we even like had, all of a sudden we come across this little waterfall, and we're like, how the heck are we supposed to get over that? So we literally had to climb a rope that was next to the waterfall. So we had to swim over to the rope. I remember like feeling like the waterfall was going to like suck me in, but I kept thinking, I'm not turning back. Nope. Like, this is a hike where you literally can't turn back. If you turn back, like, you're all by yourself in the Virgin River. That's even more dangerous than actually continuing with other people. I remember pulling myself up over that waterfall. And once I got to the top, felt like I was completely out of breath, because I'm pretty sure I was holding my breath the whole time because I was freaking out inside. But then I got to the top and I was like, oh my God, I did it. So like each step I was taking during that hike was another, oh my God, I did it moment. So every time that happened, it gave me a little bit more motivation and encouragement. I was like, okay, I could do this. Like, my body physically can do this. My mind can do this. I just need to continue on. Like, I'm not going to be that person that holds everyone back and don't complete the hike and make people stay back with me. So we kept trucking on through, and it was so, every step we took, everything that we did, and I got through it. I just remember like having a little party inside. I was just so happy with myself and so excited, because again, I never would try things that I could possibly get hurt from or that scared me. And this was everything that I would be against, but I did it. So we had to do everything again, but going down. So we get to that waterfall part. I was like, shit, it's definitely going to be way harder in order to climb down the rope and try to make sure the waterfall doesn't suck me in than it would be to jump off the waterfall. Now, I don't really like water too much. I get kind of scared. That's what happens when you grow up in Connecticut, because you can't go swimming at the beach. So anything where I feel like water is going to suck me in, I'm like dying inside. So jumping into water is definitely not my thing either. But I felt a lot safer jumping into it than I would have climbing down the rope. So I jumped off the waterfall and started swimming towards them, and everyone's also helping me and everyone else as well. So it was great. And we made it through the rest of the hike. I felt like I was on cloud 9 after. I was so incredibly proud of myself. I couldn't believe that my body was capable of being able to do this. I think that's like the first thing My issue was with hiking in general before was I felt like maybe my body wasn't fully capable of completing it and doing something like that. So it was great realizing that I had the ability to do so. And then next comes the mindset of it all, and realizing that after I kind of like ticked each thing off, like, oh, I did this, I climbed that boulder, I climbed up the waterfall, I walked across that log, anything like that where I completed it, then I had more encouragement to do the rest of it. And it's all a mindset game. Once you realize you can do something, then it's going to keep pushing you forward. And when you have that confidence, the confidence goes into your physical ability as well. So it's really interesting when you think of it all. But after that hike, I finally became one with nature, I guess you'd say. It literally was life-changing for me. This is the story I use all the time in order to, point out the fact that life begins outside of your comfort zone. That's what they always say, and I truly believe it, because this was that life-changing moment for me. I now consider myself an avid hiker. All I want to do is hike. That's all I talk about. Whether it's traveling or hiking, which they usually go hand in hand with each other. Now, like all of my vacations consist of hiking. Now I've been to Yosemite, hiked Clouds Rest, which is over 13,000 feet high. I have hiked in Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. I hiked my highest hike of over 15,000 feet in Ecuador this last summer with my friends, which that was so amazing also. And then now this, actually in a couple weeks, well, from me recording, so I probably already went by the time this podcast was out, but I am going to Alberta, Canada, and going on some crazy hikes there as well, which has been a dream of mine and I am so excited about. But anyway, who would have thought, like if you were to talk to Caitlin 10 years ago, then this would not be her. Even now, my family, when I tell them where I'm going or my stories or talk about hiking at all, they're still like, who are you? This is not like, we never thought you would end up this way. But that's the thing, is sometimes you don't even realize what you're missing out on until you actually try it. Like before I started hiking, before I stepped out of my comfort zone and found this new hobby of mine, I felt like I didn't have any hobbies, and that was such a crappy feeling. Having that hobby that like just motivates you and makes you feel really good and accomplished inside is so amazing. And I never would have felt this feeling if I didn't step out of my comfort zone. I found this new adventurous self of mine. And I've been able to take this and bring it with me into everything else. Because if I didn't experience this one experience and realizing what I can get out of it, then I feel like I wouldn't have pushed myself to do so many other things. Really, in general, I'm a dreamer. I have such big dreams. I have to say, I'm pretty proud of what I have accomplished in the past few years, ever since that moment. And being able to accomplish so many things in this short period of time. And I truly believe it's because of this experience as to why I've been able to do that. It's given me a confidence boost, and it's made me realize that if I really want something, I just need to step out of my comfort zone and do what I can in order to get that. So for example, even starting my own business. When I was little, I always dreamed of owning my own business. I never knew what that business would be, but I just always felt like I had an entrepreneurial mind. So even starting off with, my photography as a side hustle, that was a pretty big deal, because I could have easily just been like, no, I'll just like keep photography for my full-time job and just like doing it as a hobby. But no, I was like, I'm going to get my own clients and I'm going to do this for myself. In order to do that, I had to step out of my comfort zone. I had to put myself out there. And then now making it my full-time job. That is so scary and intimidating. Soon as it happened and I was telling people, the first thing I would say to them is, it's so exciting and scary at the same time. But that's okay. Like, if it wasn't, then I wouldn't be stepping out of my comfort zone. So I need to, be able to do that I need to sell myself for my business. I need to say yes to different opportunities in order to continue growing as a person. Even starting this podcast. I've been obsessed with podcasts for the past few years, and I would always think, oh, wouldn't it be so cool to have my own podcast? I get so inspired and motivated by other people, and I want to be able to share some thoughts I have with people. And so this year I was like, screw it, I'm going to do it. Like, how awesome would it be to have my own podcast? I could just talk to people all the time about these crazy thoughts in my head, but then also interview people too as well. I wouldn't be doing all of these things if I didn't step out of my comfort zone. It's constantly happening. It doesn't necessarily need to be big trips or big adventures or big hikes. It could be anything, even small things of literally reaching out to someone and asking for their business, putting yourself out there. Or it could even be getting out of your comfort zone and putting a different post up on Instagram, being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. There's so many little things too. And I really feel like each small step you take in order to getting out of your comfort zone gradually starts to lead into something bigger. So even if you start with something small, like an Instagram post, or even just reaching out to someone on Instagram that you find inspiring and starting a conversation with them, because you know that if you were to, they would help you grow as a person, then that is so worth it. That's getting out of your comfort zone, but it's going to do something beneficial for you in the end. And that's what you have to look at. And that's really what it's all about, is when you have a thought about doing something, you have to look at the result first. If you were to think about if the result was successful, how would it make you feel in the end? And if that gives you all positive vibes and something that you've always wanted to feel, then you should try it. And that's how I always look at my decision making. Doesn't necessarily mean everything's always going to end up positive and great. If it ends up bad, well, then I learned a lesson. Just because you're trying something doesn't always mean it's going to be perfect. But you don't know until you try. And that's the whole key to it all. Even for different trips that I book, I think of the result in the end. I'm like, okay, so if I were to go, how would I feel? Is this going to benefit me? Does it make me really excited? Yes. Then, okay, I'm going to go. I'll find a way. Starting this podcast, I'm like, if this podcast ends up successful, how am I going to feel in the end? Great. Okay, cool. I'm going to do it. And so really it's like that with everything. It could be small things too. I put up different posts on Instagram that makes me really vulnerable. And it can be scary because I'm putting myself out there to people that don't even know me, or people who knew me in high school and don't really know the Caitlin of 2019. And so it's kind of scary to put certain vulnerable posts out there. But if that post is successful and I receive good feedback, and heck, even if I receive bad feedback, as long as I receive something, how am I going to feel inside? Am I going to feel good about myself for putting it out there and feel relieved? Yes, then I'm going to do it. And so I think that's the key in everything. Small things, big things. It's just looking at the result, and if it's successful and it makes you happy and it feels really good inside, then you should do it no matter what it is. And gradually, small things are going to lead into big things, and you never know what's going to come out of it. Now I feel like I am finally living my life to the fullest. Where before I felt like I was hardly living at all. I remember saying no to so many things and like sitting home instead because I didn't have anything to do. I would be so sad just thinking about the fact that other people were having fun without me because I was too scared to do that hike, or I was too scared to go jet skiing or something. Then once I finally started doing these things and I had that joy inside after and that sense of accomplishment after, oh my God, sense of accomplishment is amazing. It is such a great feeling, and I want everyone to feel that. But you won't feel it until you step out of your comfort zone and try something new. Try something different. You can't expect everything to just be given to you. Just live your life in this stagnant state, because nothing's going to change that way. If you feel like you need change in your life, like something just doesn't feel right, something doesn't feel whole and complete, like something's missing, then there needs to be change. But in order to make that change, you need to have that motivation. You need to push yourself to do something different. And a lot of the times, different means getting out of your comfort zone. And that doesn't need to be a bad thing. I feel like sometimes people, when they hear that, getting out of your comfort zone, they instantly like cringe and they like get tense and scared. And they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just need to go back into my bubble and be comfortable. I'm just going to sit on the couch because that's comfortable. It's easy. Anything that's easy. Man, easy is so boring. That's the thing too. It's so boring. Like, don't you want excitement in your life? Excitement means that you are living your life to the fullest. You make so many memories that way. Being able to have stories to tell. I love telling stories. I love telling people about my experiences that I've had, good and bad. Heck, there's a lot of experiences that were bad and I learned from, but they made great stories or great learning lessons. And now I want to share them with people. I'll say, hey, maybe you shouldn't go ziplining in Ecuador because bad things could happen. But I wouldn't have known if I didn't do it. And now I'm going to share it with you. It doesn't necessarily need to be so complicated. And I feel like everyone makes it a little complicated. Now I am really excited because my goal with Caitlin Casso Creations is to share these stories, you know, my own personal stories, but then other stories from people that I meet along the way, whether it's through travels or people I meet at home and become friends with, entrepreneurs, just people going through different life experiences like I had with my hiking experience in Utah. Anything. I want to share their stories so that everybody else can hear how getting out of your comfort zone can really and truly help you live life to the fullest. Life is way too short, and we should all feel like we can follow our dreams. When you're a little kid, teachers are always asking you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What dreams do you have? I feel like there's a very small amount of people who actually follow through with their dreams because they feel like they're supposed to do something else. Like if something makes sense on paper, or I'm going to make more money if I do this instead. But in the end, you only have one life to live. So shouldn't you do what makes you happy? A lot of the times in order to get there, it could be really uncomfortable. You have to go through some steps that are uncomfortable, some scary things like, I'm going to start my own business. How am I going to make money? But you know what? You just got to make it happen. You just got to try. You got to put everything into it. Otherwise, you'll always live in the what ifs. And your life's too short for what ifs. If you're going to what if it your whole life, then you're going to look back on it when you're towards the end of your life and say, man, I wish. All the what ifs become, I wish. I don't know why anybody would want to do that. I've come to realize that my biggest fear is not living my life to the fullest. Life is so short, and I don't want to live with regrets. When I look back on my life, I don't want to say, I wish I did this and I wish I did that. I want to be the one in the nursing home telling all of my crazy stories. I want to be there telling the nurses about different travel experiences I had, telling them about any adventures that I took, telling them stories of how I started my own business and what I made from my own business. I don't want to tell stories of, I wish I did this, or yeah, when I worked at this company, be there for 12 hours a day, working nonstop, being stressed and coming home, shoving food in my mouth and going to bed. Like, those sound like terrible stories. I want to tell amazing, awesome stories that motivate people and encourage them for the rest of my life, starting now until I'm in a nursing home telling everybody else my stories, because I want to die happy. I want to, have lots of memories to look back on. I want to die with a smile on my face, not disappointment. Those are my goals. And I hope that sharing my story today, sharing future stories that I have, and sharing others' stories will help inspire, motivate, encourage, and empower everyone to follow their dreams and do all the things that they have dreamed of doing. And so that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and continue to follow along and subscribe. Thanks again for listening to the Inspired by Her Story podcast. I hope you found some inspiration, motivation, encouragement, and empowerment to get out of your comfort zone and live your life to the fullest. Make sure to hit subscribe, share with a friend, and take these stories with you to make the changes in your life that you've been looking for. Follow me on Instagram at Caitlin Casso, and even check out my work at CaitlinCasso.com. Stay tuned for the next Inspired by Her Story episode.